the Who is Will Sims podcast. Today, my guest is Michael Spedden. And Michael Spedden's done it all, man. He's an actor, musician, podcaster, and a DJ. I usually like to start with the musical stuff. So you said you played with some bands over the years. Could you tell me a little bit?
It's Michael Spedden, but yes, I've been playing in bands. I haven't been in the last few years, but that started around 83. I started my first garage band. I'm a bass player originally, and started doing that, playing in metal bands back in those days. Was in the garage, and then the hair band thing kind of started. So late 80s. I was in a band called Fritzes Dynamite that probably did the best. We were playing at places like the Rage, the Old Mill Tavern in Dundalk. I don't know, a lot of these places are probably a good deal before your time, but I could tell you some stories about some of these places. The Rage was on Calvert Street, and that was a great metal bar. It was kind of like the second tier. Hammerjacks was down there. And, Hammerjacks was the big place. And then there was, like Network. The Rage was kind of on the same tier as like Maxwell's up in like the Parkville, Towson area. Let me see. There was Chambers, there was Schaefer's back then. So I played, a lot of those clubs around here in Fritz's Dynamite during the hair band era. And we did that for a bit, and then later in the 80s, the hair band thing was starting to fade, but there really wasn't a solid knowledge of what was coming next. Okay, Seattle hadn't quite hit yet.
Yes.
And a lot of people were doing, the alternative thing. They were saying, well, we're not a heavy metal band, we're alternative. Okay, so, and 99.1 WHFS was growing in popularity there. There was a lot more crossover back then from the heavier rock to the alternative stuff. People were, getting into both Metallica and the Ramones at the same time. And during that time, the hair band thing was starting to fade. We didn't know what was next. So we started a band called Orangeseed Parade, which was kind of gothic looking, kind of gothic sounding. I kind of compare us a little bit to the Cult. And we played, the Rage. We were like a piece of furniture there. And we did, let me see, the Rage. The 930 Club in D.C. was great. And there was the old 930 Club. We did that. There was a place called the 15-Minute Club, which I thought was really cool because it was at 15th and K. And that's the corner where all the senators and everybody else goes to get their dates for the evening, so to say. So we were playing that club. We got booked there, and I had to go back to my van to get something. I think I left my tuner out there or something. And so I walked out of the club to go over there, and every 10 feet in front of this place was a hooker. Okay, and it looked like I walked into one of those 70s movies with the pimps and everything, because those guys were out there. The big hats, the feathers sticking out of it, the big furry lapel trench coats. All the girls had their fishnet stockings and platform shoes on and everything. And I thought I was in some, movie set and everything, but it was real. And another thing that was really cool about this club was that when we played, a lot of other people told me the same thing too. They didn't have a traditional light show. You played in front of a white wall. And what they would do is they would play movies in the background, like art movies.
Nice.
They played. You ever seen the Fantastic Planet? It was a movie made in the 70s. It was a cartoon that was kind of science fiction, a lot of aliens and stuff in it. And it was one of those things that they played on. There was a show called Night Flight back then where they used to play like a lot of obscure movies, cult classic things, and that was one of them. And if you were my age, you would know that movie well. That was the light show that night, and that was really a good experience. But the thing that was really crazy was being from up here and trying to navigate DC in a day before GPS. and not knowing the difference between, that there's a 9th Street Southeast, Northeast, and Northwest, and trying to find your way around that way. Only using a map, really a street map back then, and the street maps were small, and you're driving around down there not used to having the traffic lights hang over the road like they do up here. They're always on the corner. I knew I must have blown through more of them than anything else. So that's what it was like playing there. Another place was in Rockville. I think it was called Club 118. Treated us very well there. Another one was the Paragon. This was in College Park, and it was on Route 1 in College Park, not quite into the DC proper, but right outside. And the thing that was crazy about that is I remember one night we got booked there. We got booked there and at the Rage in the same night. And it snowed, okay? And we had to do both shows. We had to do both shows. And the Paragon had the steps from hell. It was like this 2 flights of stairs, like way the hell up. I mean, you were playing like on the 2nd floor of this building. And, here I am lugging, an Ampeg bass rig, the drums, everything else up these stairs, and everybody talks about those stairs. They were just crazy over there. Paragon was a great place.
Yeah, we've had a couple places like that where the staircase is almost as famous as the venue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the way this was here too. But Paragon was a fun bar, a great place to play. And then we used to get CBGBs. Did CBGBs a couple of times in New York City, and that was a lot of fun as well. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And just like you were saying before too, you had mentioned, you had spoken, we kind of talked offline a little bit about, you had interviewed Bud Becker. We didn't have, a camera right in your pocket back then where you could take selfies, you could take pictures of everything. It was kind of rare. Well, the thing was too, a lot of clubs didn't allow people to bring cameras in. You had to get permission to do that. But a lot of times if you were in there taking pictures, out you went. And, the bouncers weren't very nice about it either. You're lucky if your camera made it out in one piece.
Right.
Nowadays they really can't control that at all. Things have really changed so much. But, so Orangeseed Parade was around from like 89 until 92 or 93, I think. The band kind of went kaput, and we did a CD, and the band broke up at the CD release party,
Yeah, I've been in a few of those.
Yeah, we got the CD out and everything, and if you want one, I'll send it to you. I still have like a tub full of them out in my garage from 90.
Oh, dude, I'd love one.
Sure.
Were you ever able to get it up on like streaming or app or like iTunes or anything like that?
Oh yeah. It's out in the lost universe of streaming. It's on YouTube and CD Baby and all that.
Yeah.
But I never saw a penny. You'd get this statement where it says, "Oh, you have 10,000 streams this month," and there's like a check for like maybe $250 or something. It's just ridiculous with that. But did that for so did Orangeseed. I stopped to kind of get life under control for a bit. I wasn't making any money. I hadn't had a job that was really. I had a job, but it wasn't really something to make a career at. So I kind of took some years off to kind of stabilize life. Came back and did an acoustic duo called the Uncle Moldy Show for a number of years, starting around 2005, and we still do that from time to time, even though it's not really our premier gig for either one of us. I play with a fellow, Johnny Trotta, who's a longtime friend. Original acoustic songs. We were playing, Reverb. We did a lot of the open mics around town, the acoustic open mics. Played with a lot of people there, but I kind of got a little more into acting. Johnny is a little more into playing in classic rock bands and things like that. So we still do it from time to time, but it's not like our main thing that either one of us does anymore. But, we're still great friends and, talk all the time and everything. And so, did that. And, so that's music right there,
Nice.
We had a couple of...
What were some of the early records that kind of got you into wanting to play music?
Oh boy. Well, when I was a kid, growing up in the '70s, of course, it was almost like the law back then, where you had to like Kiss growing up. I liked them when I was, a kid. I still kind of like them, but they're not one of my top tens anymore. Of course, Rush, Iron Maiden. I'm a bass player, so that's the kind of those are the kinds of bands I really got into. Rush, Iron Maiden. Yes, I was really into Deep Purple. I've seen, of course, Judas Priest, Blue Oyster Cult, White Snake. Gosh, so many of them to name. Man.
So
I play them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, when you were like, I'm gonna try to get into the musical thing, where did you ever like, did you start on guitar and then move to bass, or were you like, I want to play the bass?
I started out on bass, and then I ended up playing guitar later.
Nice.
Yeah, I started off playing bass, and then I was finding that I can't sing and play bass at the same time, so I started playing acoustic guitar. And I'm not a lead player or anything like that. I'm pretty much a chord banger, and I would let Johnny, Johnny would play the lead, and he used to play a lot of slide, and we both play harmonica too. So that's
awesome.
kind of how I solo is I put strap the horse collar on and play harmonica with guitar. Johnny is he plays a lot of slide, does a lot of finger picking and things like that. And I was pretty much just the rhythm player. But yeah, I started on bass and played guitar afterwards. Yeah.
Did you have a lot of I'm always curious. I know a lot of people talk about the good old days with music scene around here, but like, did you find more often than not you were playing to like rooms of people that were there to rock out and have a good time to a band, or did you have your fair share of like playing to an empty bar or like having a adult dead night?
It was both back in those days, in the band days. There were nights when it was a whole mixture of those things. I mean, it was an entirely different atmosphere back then. Back in those days, there was no social media. There was no putting your flyers out on Facebook, notifying people on Instagram. If you wanted to play back then, those club owners had better have seen you out in their clubs, handing out flyers, meeting people, passing stuff out, getting acquainted with the crowd and bringing people in that way. And, buying, a round of beers for a couple of guys, talking it up, putting your flyers up wherever you could, taking out ads in Rocks Magazine or Maryland Musician. 97 Underground was really good about, they would read off like a roll of who was playing where every couple of hours. And so you did have your way of, promoting it back then, and it wasn't social media. It was more face-to-face. But yeah, we had times when it was packed. We had times when we were playing for the bartender. It was a mix of things. But the shows that counted, I thought we always did well at. We always did well at New York and CBGB's. We always did well in D.C. And actually, we did have a good following here in Baltimore, which was our hometown. But D.C. and New York, three different animals. Baltimore is a blue-collar area, a lot more hair bandish back in those days. And even though the band sounded good, looked good, played well and everything, Baltimore was not as accepting of original material at first, or marching to the beat of your own drum as DC and New York were. Orangeseed Parade didn't really fit the hair band town that this was to a T. We were more accepted for who we were in DC and New York. However, we did do very well in Baltimore as well. It was just, New York and DC were kind of a better fit for us, really. But we had good nights, we had bad nights. We had a couple of nights when we were booked like at the Rage, and we were like, all right, we got this Saturday night, we got a prime spot. They used to have 4 or 5 bands a night playing at these places. And 4 or 5 bands a night, we're like, all right, we got a great spot, we're going to kill. Then all of a sudden we would look in Maryland Musician or Rocks. We're like, oh crap, the Ramones are at Hammerjacks.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
There was another band that was really popular that used to come. They were called the Vamps. They moved to New York and they were called Skin and Bones, and they would come down. Another band was called Tommy and the Love Tribe, and they were just like, God, we're playing against them in a different room, and they would always, the crowds went over there. And so it was always a numbers game. You just had to get out and keep doing it. And it was the luck of the draw a lot of times,
That's cool. Yep. Awesome, man.
Yeah,
so
we did, another time, we got accused of murder one time. There was a show called Rock Live, and it was on, I think it was either on Channel 45 or 54. It was either Fox 45 or I think it was WNUV 54, one of those two. It was locally filmed, so it was somebody that filmed local, and it was on late on Saturday night. I think it came on like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It was on after, it may have been up against Saturday Night Live or something like time slot wise, but there was a fellow by the name of Phil Sibley who was a photographer. He knows Bud too, and he did a lot of stuff photography wise, and had a show called Rock Live, and he would go around to all the clubs in Baltimore and DC, and interview, get a little bit of footage of you playing and everything. We were supposed to be on the show that night at the Rage. They were filming us at the Rage, and we were like Norm at Cheers at the Rage. I mean, we were there a lot. I mean, it was just, I keep saying the Rage, the Rage, the Rage, but we were there a lot. Anybody who was around then knew. Well, right around the corner from the Rage was at Calvert at Lombard. Right around the corner and a couple blocks down was the Block. And a lot of the girls would come to the Rage. They would dance. And then when they didn't have a set for an hour or two, whatever, they would come around to the Rage and hang out. They were part of the crowd there. They were part of, just like Norm and Cliff Clavin on Cheers. It was, musicians and strippers at the Rage, So there was a girl who was in a bad relationship, and she had a roommate who was talking her into breaking up with the boyfriend. Well, our couple of our band members were friends with these girls. One of the girls ended up dead. The boyfriend of the roommate came in, strangled her with a phone cord, and we were questioned about it. And they showed up the night that we were supposed to film Rock Live. And needless to say, that put kind of a damper on the evening. And so we had, of course, we didn't do it. They found the guy in Florida like a year later, but that we ended up having to reschedule that night. And, so we did Rock Live. We were interviewed on 97 Underground, too. We used to get played on 97 Underground. And actually, that's where I work now, part-time. I have a show on 97 Underground as well as my own podcast.
Yeah, so sorry, I had it right here. Is it the Fowl Players Radio?
Yeah, Fowl Players Radio is my podcast, yep.
Okay.
And that is a podcast I've had for 5 years, almost 6 now, interviewing. We have a real heritage in this area here. A lot of the bands in the Baltimore, D.C., Mid-Atlantic region, the bands like, Crack the Sky, D.C. Star, Kix, Wrathchild, they did well, very, very well. In this area, they were like the Rolling Stones. It did fairly well, outside of these areas here. But they were really big here, and there were a lot of legendary clubs. I mean, you can get this, a lot of this history by talking to people like Bud Becker and, the guys in these bands that are around. That was originally what I was trying to capture when I started the podcast. That and the television and radio personalities from those days. Then I kind of ended up branching out into Hollywood and Broadway and current people as well as people from years ago. But the main focus was to kind of, help preserve and document the history and the heritage of the music scenes and the arts and entertainment scenes of this region. Again, more people like the Road Ducks. I mean, good Lord, how can you put this project together without having those guys on?
I hear stories about bands all the time. And I feel like there's so many bands that I've seen in the scene over the years that I thought were really great, but they kind of fall apart after a while, and then it's like, does anybody even really know they exist? And it's just a shame that some of them didn't get more notoriety. But that was my bad. So Fowl Players Radio is your podcast. It's the back of the rack is the 97 Underground show. Is that correct?
The back of the rack, the Michael Spedden show on 97underground.com. It's on Tuesdays from 4 to 6. I interview bands as well as, a lot of the stuff I play is more classic metal, Uriah Heep, Iron Maiden, stuff from the older days, Slade, T-Rex, the stuff that was almost kind of like the grandfathers of what we know as heavy metal now. I do play some new bands and up-and-coming bands, too. And if you are listening and in a band, now it's got to be a heavier type of band. We're not going to play techno or dance music or anything like that. Reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me, and we'll talk. We'll definitely talk.
I got some heavy songs.
Cool. Well, we will discuss that, my friend. We will definitely discuss that. I emceed the other night. Zebra came to the Ram's Head down in Annapolis, and I emceed the show. I introduced them, got to meet them and hang out and everything. They were really good friends with DC Star years ago. They used to play Long Island together. It was they used to do a lot of shows. It was Twisted Sister, DC Star, and Zebra used to play together a lot up there. And also emceed for Slaughter. Slaughter played Hammerjacks quite a bit, and they were great guys too. They couldn't have been nicer. They got a chance to meet them and hang out and talk and everything, and couldn't have been nicer guys, But the 97 Underground gig, I mean, that's there's a lot of history in that itself. I did a nice interview with Tom Pless, who's the general manager, just about how that station started and where they went after that. And it's been back ever since 2015 as an app where you can listen all the time. And there's a lot of history there, The personalities, I've had a number of personalities on the podcast, Mike Diamond, Zach Stone, Heavy Metal Han, Terry Berlin, Sue Hodges. If you're my age, those names will mean something to you. Younger folks may not remember them, but good times on that station. I'll tell you, good times. They were out all over the place, very supportive. One of the great things about 97 Underground was they gave local bands a chance to be a regular band on the radio. So in other words, it wasn't just a local band show, like some of the other bigger stations around town have had, like DC 101 had Local Licks, 98 Rock had Noise in the Basement, where just that show would give the local bands an opportunity to be played on the air. But 97 Underground, if you had a tape and they liked it, it was a well done tape. You couldn't just stick a boom box at rehearsal and record. It had to be studio quality. But if it was, I mean, they'd have you in the rotation. They would have you in there, right between Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and you. And that's how it was. And they treated the scene, they treated bands, they took them seriously. They treated them like they were a real band and not just local yokel schmoes, and really did well for a long time. I know a lot of people I could introduce you to elaborate on that story if you want, but yeah. And I really enjoy being on there. I was interviewed, I was treated well by 97 Underground back when I was playing, and I really enjoy being on there now,
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, that's got to be a cool thing to be a part of.
It really is. It really is.
Especially if you're like helping,
Oh, sure,
acts,
sure.
acts get to have a moment like that. I mean, I've I've been lucky enough. I've been on Noise in the Basement, and I think HFS when they came back,
Yeah.
and they were doing like a local thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like there was something like that it was just the one song,
Mm-hmm.
and there was somebody like it was like Guns N' Roses or something before us, and then they'd
Mm-hmm.
play our song and go right into the mix, and that was pretty cool feeling to have. And I think most bands should get to have an
Yeah,
opportunity like that.
HFS was good with that stuff, and they treated Orangeseed Parade very well too. Nisi was great to us. Played us quite a bit, and not only on I think they had a local program too, but she would also play. That we would get in the rotation there from time to time as well, and college stations played us too.
Cool.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's the DJ podcaster realm, and then of course you're also an actor. You've been in a few different roles in looks like a bunch of different series. I would say the
Yep.
most notable one for me is Gotham.
You like
Although,
Gotham?
like some of these other shows look like they've got like good ratings and stuff. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt,
Yeah. Yeah.
Murder Under the Friday Night Lights.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I've watched a little bit of Gotham. I didn't do a deep dive into it,
Mm-hmm.
but I did like what I saw. What was it like being on that show?
Oh, that was amazing. That was when I got signed by my agent back in 2018, and that was the first show I booked. Gotham, for those that may not have watched it, was about Gotham City, of course. Batman. It was the story of Batman is, Bruce Wayne was a young kid. He was out with his parents. His parents got shot, and he became Batman as he grew up. Well, that Gotham takes place from that moment until he becomes Batman. So it's those years in between, and it's more about the rise of the criminals. And I have to say, I was lucky to get that part. Okay, for a number of reasons. First of all, the episode I filmed was the very last before they wrapped the show. Okay, after they filmed the episode I was in, the show was over. They tore down the sets, and I was in the third last episode to air. Okay, so season 5, episode 8. Another thing was that one of the actors I was performing opposite is his name was Andrew Sellon, who played Mr. Penn on the show. Mr. Penn ended up being a character called the ventriloquist, and he was able to talk the writers into bringing the ventriloquist character on because they had all the other enemies on there, the Penguin, the Riddler, the Scarecrow, Mr. Freeze, every Batman villain you can think of was on there. And then they had Mr. Penn, the ventriloquist, towards the end. They were able to talk him into it, and then that's how I ended up getting my part. I played a character named Dale, who was one of the Penguin's henchmen. And I didn't talk. I was a mute. And the thing that was great about this, when I went to the audition, I went to New York City to audition for this part. And there were 2 characters I was auditioning for in this specific episode. One was Dale, who I played, and I got that part. The other one was a mutant that was in the tunnel of this, like an underground tunnel somewhere, and ended up getting into a fight with Bruce Wayne and Alfred. And so I went to this audition. I auditioned for 2 parts. The first part that I got Dale, all I had to do was make dumb looks. I just had to be like, because, I was this idiot. And the second one, I had to make growling and snarling noises like the Tasmanian devil. And I ended up booking the parts. I got up to New York City. It was filmed in Brooklyn at Steiner Studios. And this was like right after Thanksgiving of 18. I get up there, and this is like the most amazing place I've ever seen in my life. It's like the size of a super Walmart, but like 12 stories high or something. And you're walking through there, and you're seeing all kinds of sets. All these TV shows are filmed there. We were right down the hall from where FBI was being shot and a couple of other shows. And you could just walk around and see these sets. I mean, it was like you're walking through a mall, and there you are in Gotham City Hall. You were in the Sirens nightclub. You were in the Penguins office. It was really an interesting experience going through there, you know. So I get there, I get to my dressing room, and wardrobe brought my clothes over. So I was starting to get myself together, and they were going to bring me breakfast, which was cool. And so I'm in my dressing room, and I look over, and there's Andrew Sell, and he goes, "Hi, how are you? I'm Andrew." And I'm like, "It's Mr. Penn, holy," you know. And so I got talking to him. He was very, very nice, very, very welcoming. You know, the whole cast was really like a family there, and they were really close knit, very, very tight, very, you know, friends. There was a lot of very big friendships there between the rest of the cast. Again, I was there on the last day, so I really didn't get a chance to know anybody well. I was also playing against the Penguin. His name was Robin Lord Taylor, and I'm a big boy. All right, I'm 6'6". Okay, and we were waiting outside of the set to go in. Okay, and I was playing again his henchman, big dumb guy, and I was carrying a tray of food, and it was real food. It wasn't prop food or anything like that. And on the tray was some open tins of sardines and anchovies and grapes, and I think a can of tuna or something. So it was a little, you know, and I was holding it up about chest high. He's about 5'6". So we were waiting outside, waiting for our call, our cue to come into the set. He turned around to say something to somebody. He ended up being like nose to nose with the tray of food. And he's like, "Oh man, what the hell is all that?" And I said, he just looked up at me, and I said, he goes, "You eat this stuff?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I get sardines once a year or something like that. I don't mind that." And, you know, I said, "It's definitely not date food," you know, and he started laughing. And, you know, we did our set, you know, we did the shoot and everything together. It was great. You know, I can't get over how the sets were put together, all the way they would light things. The room that we were in was like a laboratory. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was like when it came to all the props and everything, there was like 1 million books up on the shelves, old books, old science books, old, you know, leather-bound books. Every book in there was real. There were none of those like IKEA fake boxes that look like books. They were all real books. And they had lights outside to make it look like it was evening, morning, all kinds of ways to set it up and everything. You know, it was just amazing walking through these sets and everything and seeing everything. And I was really grateful to have had that opportunity, you know. The next one that I booked was the J.G. Wentworth Viking. And
yes,
I was on that.
That's actually like, I've seen that commercial and heard it so many times. No. And I was like, you sent me the thing and I'm looking at it. I'm like, looking for you in the ad. And then you pop out in the Viking outfit. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, like that jingle lives rent free in my brain.
Well, you know, something, that jingle lives rent free in my brain too, because I had to listen to it for 10 hours while we were filming it that day. And that was a fun shoot too. And I got to meet a lot of very, very nice people. The bus was the cast was absolutely great. Absolutely great. I made some good friends that I still talk to this day. We filmed that in Stamford, Connecticut. And the funny thing about that is when I went to audition for that, that was right after Christmas of 18. And we filmed it actually, what's today, the 7th?
Yeah.
I think it may have actually been 5 years ago, like today.
Wow.
It was either the 7th or the 9th of 2019. So that was filmed in Stamford, Connecticut. When I went to the audition in New York, have you ever seen the Mel Brooks producers, the Gene Wilder version, not the Matthew Broderick?
I have not seen it, but I've like heard talk about it before.
Okay. You know what the whole thing is about. They were trying to make a movie that was a flop. And they made a movie called Springtime for Hitler. Okay. And part of the, and good old Mel Brooks with his, inappropriate,
Right.
politically incorrect. They were auditioning in the movie. They were auditioning for the part of Hitler, and so when they had that scene, there was probably about 40 people in Hitler outfits, all warming up to audition for the part of Hitler. When I went to the audition for J.G. Wentworth, there was like 40 guys in Viking outfits. All right. And they're all, I just went in regular clothes. I just wore like a, polo shirt and a pair of khakis. That's my normal audition wear. There were guys in there that were actually wearing horn helmets. They had their hair braided. They had these long beards. And they were all in there dressed like that. Then there was people that were supposed to be just bus riders, a bunch of them around too. And I was surprised I got that, but I got it. Went to Stamford, Connecticut. Had to be up there, had to be on set 6 o'clock in the morning, so I stayed over. And so the bus is out there. We were all inside, and they were doing our hair and makeup and everything. And I had to go back to my car to get something. I think it was like a form or something I needed to give them. And so I hear those guys saying, on the bus, did you see how tall that guy is? How's this going to work? Because, again, I told you I'm 6'6". When I stand flat foot on the floor of that bus, my head touches the ceiling because the inside of the bus is 6.5 feet. Okay. Now, I had to have that helmet on, and those horns were an additional 8 inches high, and they had lights and stuff up high. Okay, so the only way we were able to really make it work is I had to stand in the back of the bus in that little stairway that leads to the back door. So we're driving around all day in Stamford, Connecticut, playing that song. Okay, and then they would, have, and it was all lip sync. They've been using the same recordings for 30 years.
I was going to ask that. Did you have to sing the song over and over and over again?
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, we just lip synced at the audition too. The people that were getting kicked out of the audition were the ones that were coming in and singing. That what they would say is they would hold up cue cards and they would have a group of us up there. They would point to everybody, and you would all sing the group parts, and then they would point to people, and you would like read off the card and lip sync it and kind of interpret it as you would. And so we were, lip syncing this whole thing. They've used the same recordings for 20 or 30 years or whatever. And so everybody's doing their
kicking
parts.
out the people that couldn't follow simple directions.
Yeah, and it was bonehead stuff in there. I mean, it was just like, I didn't think I was going to get it because so many people in my group were just like idiots. They would start singing. They're like, don't sing lip sync. And the guy would sing anyway. And I'm like, God. So, we're on the bus, and then it comes to my part where I have to come in kind of for the grand finale, and I'm standing down in the stairwell, so I had to like kind of step backwards into the side and come around the one girl that was back there, and then kind of come in and look like I was on balance, and I know I didn't, and I caught a lot of flack on YouTube about that. Like I like the old Viking better. I'm like, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was hard because we're on a moving bus having to do that move and try to make it smooth. And, we're going around corners and stuff where the whole bus is moving and everything. So, what I gave them is what they went with, and they didn't tell me to do it again. So, hey, I would have gladly have done it more, but, so it was what it was. And the funny thing about it was that I got recognized by people in the most random places. I mean, one time I was at a bull roast and I'm just sitting there eating, and these guys come over and I'm like, and they're like, we know who you are. And I was like, uh-oh, what did I do? And I was like, it wasn't me. And they're like, no, you're that Viking. You're the Viking on the camera. I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. Yeah. Another time, my murder mystery, we were doing Polar Express, and I was playing the hobo, and I was up there entertaining kids, and their parents go, you're the J.G. Wentworth Viking. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So it's cool to be recognized, after that, I got the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Not the series, but the movie that they filmed afterwards. It was called Kimmy versus the Reverend, and it's still on Netflix now.
Nice.
That was really cool. I auditioned for that part as the bartender. It was supposed to. It took place in Congress. It took place in West Virginia, but it was filmed in Congers, New York, right above New York City, and filmed that was in June of 19. Yeah, like there was like June of 19. I was up there and got to work with Ellie Kemper and Titus Burgess. Paul Lazar, I think his name was another person in the scene. If you remember Silence of the Lambs, there was a scene where Jodie Foster, they fished the body out of the river and the girl had a bug in her throat and they brought the bug in to be identified. That guy, the guy that asked her out for drinks and cheeseburgers or something, he was in the scene too.
Nice.
And he was great to work with, a really nice guy. There was a band in the bar playing Freebird, and part of the scene is and it's interactive. You know, you got to choose when Kimmy and Titus showed up for the bar. The band's up there playing. They were the real name was actually Sons of Skinner. They were a Skinner tribute band. And so Titus comes in, and you could choose with your remote, does Titus know Freebird or does Titus not know Freebird? And, so you could choose either way. And then, so I come in and I'm like, what are you strangers doing here? And I was like, can I help you strangers? And then when they walked in, it was like one of those classic like record skip entrances where everybody like stops and turns around and looks at them. And then people are yelling Freebird. He gets up and starts singing Freebird, and then he sang it and everybody loved him. And then he comes over and I say, how about a couple of nice cold beers on the house? So I handed Ellie Kemper and Titus a couple of beers. And the thing that was really cool about that was I didn't get a picture with her. I wanted to, but she was so damn busy. Tina Fey, the whole time we were filming, she was like 10 feet away from me. And she's the executive producer. And I spoke to her for a little bit. She was super nice. And I really like her. Her sense of humor, she and I are like within the same age group. And the point of reference for our sense of humor is right in the same ballpark. So I really like what she does. And I think she's a really good writer, really good producer. It was a real pleasure to work for her up there on this job, and, so I've done that. And, I still do my murder mystery company, still go on auditions. I've had some commercials and some voiceover work. Not only
do I say any like particular role that you feel like really really great about, like oh man, nailed it there.
I really enjoyed the Gotham. I was surprised. Well, not really surprised. You see, Gotham, the following for Gotham is like a religion. It's like Star Trek. The people that follow Star Trek, there are people that were Gleeks, the people that followed Glee. There were people that followed The Sopranos, people that watched The Office. Gotham is the same way. And I spoke with a couple of people on Twitter and on Facebook, and they follow me, and they send me stuff once in a while. I sent a couple of autographed pictures out. That and a nickel will get you a cup of coffee, but hey. I was really happy with that because Gotham was supposed to go 7 seasons, and it only went like really 4.5. There was supposed to be a finished season 5, then season 6 and 7. And it only got to midway through 5, and they could put the kibosh on it. And there are a lot of people that are still holding that torch. They still want Gotham to come back. They're hoping it'll come back. I'd love to do that again.
Nice.
The thing is with Gotham is that most of the characters that died like 4 times. It's like, bam, bam, bam. he's dead. Then 3 episodes later, he's back. Messed up, but he's back. You know, um, you know, I'd love to do. I'd love to get one of the Law and Order franchises. I love those shows.
Nice.
And there's, I auditioned for indie films. I did do a project that hasn't been released yet, and I can't describe what it is, but it will be an internet-based like comedy series, but I can't disclose anything else until it's out. I was just in a movie that came out called The Lachrymose Primrose, which is on Amazon Prime right now, and I'm not a principal in it. I have a smaller role in it where I play actually a radio guy named Kevin Loberman towards the end, and so that's coming out. Some of the other work that I do, a little less glamorous, but it's fun to do, is from time to time a company calls me and I narrate science films, like school films you watch in biology class. Or
Nice.
I've done a couple of those, a couple of commercials here and there. I do some voiceovers and things for 97 Underground as well, concert commercials and
Nice.
things for myself. So, and my murder mystery company keeps me busy too. We have a murder mystery company. I started doing murder mysteries about 7 or 8 years ago, almost 8 now. It was with a company called Otter Productions, and Herb Otter was the owner, and he kind of wanted to go do something else. So he sold the company to me, and he sold half of it to Jill Redding. Jill Redding, you would remember, she was an actress in The Wire. She played Dolores the barmaid in season 2. If you remember the Polish dock worker bar, she was the barmaid in there, told the guy to stop pulling out his you-know-what. So she got half of the company, I got half of it, and we worked together, but we do shows on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, Fifth Company Brewing, Maryland Party Boat.
Nice.
They're all comedy murder mystery shows, and we have a good troupe of people. A lot of the people have done, more upscale or more higher profile things. We've had people that have been on The Veep. One fella was a puppeteer for Stu Kerr on some Baltimore kids shows from years and years ago. My wife has worked with us before. She's been on SVU. And we do these, we have a website. It's the Fowl Players of Perryville. .com. You can see where our shows are going to be. And we've got some fundraisers coming up. We're doing one for the Dolly Parton Library, a benefit for that. I guess I don't know much about that. I have to plead the fifth on that one. I don't really know much about it. And then another one with another theater company called Rogue Swan. They're based in Havre de Grace, and they're a really interesting theater company. They do a lot of vaudevilles, and not only do they act, but they also have a band of well versed musicians. And they do not only they call them vaudevilles. They kind of dress like the 20s, and they do a lot of shows where there's both musical and acting and comedy bits in it and everything too. And they're really, really good. And I've had the opportunity to work with them to do a murder mystery show for a benefit, which is going to be at the Van Diver Inn on the 15th of February. So, I've believe me, I'm not running out of things to do, I'll tell you.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask what you had coming up. So if you send me some links for that, I'll be sure to try to share those on my, I have a little podcast group that I kind of pulling everyone in who's on. So
sure. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Promote each other. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I just got a couple other questions. These are more like, just fun questions.
Sure.
Just kind of wrap it up. So what's a movie you could watch over and over again and never get tired of watching it?
Oh boy. Wait, let me see. I love well, it's the holidays right now, so I always love A Christmas Story. You know, I probably spent half a Christmas day
Yeah, yeah.
watching that.
That I remember as
Oh,
a kid, man. When they, I don't know what cable's like now, but yeah, when I was a kid, they would show it all day.
oh yeah. I have. I love the Marx Brothers. They've influenced my writing of like some of the gags and things I put into the murder mystery shows. I love any Marx Brothers movie. Animal Crackers, A Day at the Races, Horse Feathers are my favorites of theirs. Of course, I love Airplane. I can watch that anytime. Let me see. Oh gosh, there's Godfather 1 and 2. Three's okay, but 1 and 2 are pretty much the ones I really like.
Nice.
I can watch those all the time too. Gosh,
Cool.
Monty
All right.
Python. Just about any Monty Python. Is
Nice.
yeah.
If you could work, what would be like your dream collaboration if you could work with like a director or an actor? Like when you think, man, I'd really love to work with that person. Who do you think of?
Oh, there's so many of them right now. Some of the people that I really like a lot. Richard Kind is one of my favorite actors. He's a character actor, and he's just great. He's really versatile. He's always great in everything that he does. I'd love to work with James Spader. I would love to work with, if there's ever an Office reboot, I would love to at least get an audition for that.
Yeah.
Law and Order SVU or Organized Crime. I'd love to be on one of those shows. Those
Cool.
would be wonderful. Theater. I've done a lot of theater too. I've done Shakespeare. I've done a number of musicals. Children's theater is actually a lot of fun, and I do quite a bit of that as well. I'd love to be in Fiddler on the Roof. I'd love to be in Jesus Christ Superstar. I've been in a couple of times playing Caiaphas, and I'm a bass singer,
Nice.
and I've enjoyed playing that part. I'd love to revisit that one too.
Cool. What's a underrated or overlooked movie you think more people should watch?
Oh boy, an underrated movie I think more people should watch. Let me think about that a second here.
Or maybe like it got bad reviews and you were like, it wasn't that bad, you know?
Oh, okay. Um,
I feel like lately there's been a lot of movies like it'll get review bombed, like almost like the critics don't like it, but then I go see it and I'm like, ah, well, I had a good time, you know?
right, right, right. Gosh, I'm just trying to think, but I'm blanking right now. Let me see.
You're good. Think about it. You ever, if you were gonna have like a movie night, what's like your idea of like perfect setup for a movie night? Like snacks,
Oh,
you know?
let me see. Wings.
There you go.
Some wings and couple of drinks. Um, Jack Daniels, wings. At my age, my stomach's not going to like me the next day, so I may as well
Right, right.
really enjoy that movie.
You have like a nice setup for like if you're
Oh
gonna
yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. My wife and I have our TV time and everything, and we have a nice a nice big soft couch that we enjoy sitting on and watching movies together. We have the dog on our lap, we have our snacks and everything out, and we really have a good time. We really have a good time doing that. We watch a lot of movies together. We look at things that we've done, and we like to follow a lot of those Harlan Coben shows on Netflix. They're like a murder mystery serials. They're usually about like 8 episodes, and there's probably about 6 or 8 of them out there now. That's something that we really enjoy watching those. We've been revisiting a British show called Keeping Up Appearances, which is really, really funny. It was filmed in the 90s, and it's about a lady who is she's very pretentious. She tries to look like she's like an upper crust British person. She's really just a middle class lady, but she tries to be, to put on these airs like she knows the queen and she's really big in society and everything. And she gets into these embarrassing situations because her relatives, her sister and her in-laws and everything, they always show up at her house and they're just like, I guess, kind of like the British equivalent of Cousin Eddie from the Chevy Chase movies. And it's really funny, these situations she ends up in. So we've been kind of revisiting that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, when I got my dad set up with Netflix back, like, it was like right before the pandemic, we moved into this apartment in Parkville, and I got him set up with Netflix, and man, he just watched like so many crime dramas, like foreign ones, like I'm trying to remember the name of this one he watched. It was like the bleakest like crime show. It was like set in like some European country.
Yeah.
It's just like super desolate, but like, the main character had gone through all this trauma. So I can't find it now, but it was just like, I was just like, man, like that is some of the most depressing writing I've seen on characters in a while.
Yeah. That's a lot of like what the Harlan Coben series are like too. He's an author. A lot of his books took place here in America, but I guess the production companies are all like usually either in England, and a couple of them were filmed, I think, in Poland. And some of them are overdubbed, but some of the Polish ones were overdubbed. Well, the Polish ones were overdubbed, but it didn't look like a Godzilla movie from the 60s. They actually did a really good job with it. All
right, last question. What's a movie line for word? Every line word for word.
Airplane.
That's a good one.
Airplane. I'll tell you a story about that too. And actually kind of about somebody I interviewed on that. If you remember A Christmas Story, you probably remember Scotty Schwartz. Now, his character in A Christmas Story wasn't named Schwartz, his name was Flick. And he was a little boy that got his tongue stuck to the pole.
Ah, yes. I know this scene.
He, the child actor, one of the things that he used to like to do when he would, when he was that age, is he would record movies on audio, and he would walk around with his headphones on and listen to them, and he knew word for word. After he did Christmas Story, he was in a movie called The Toy with Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason, and his father bought Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor was his toy. Okay, well, one of his dialogue coaches on that movie was one of the guys from Airplane who spoke jive. So he met the guy, and then they recognized each other. And so they used to do those scenes back and forth where, between him and the other guy and Barbara Billingsley, he knew those scenes where they were speaking jive word for word. They used to do those back and forth all the time when they would work together. And but Airplane, I could pretty much do word for word. Pretty much A Christmas Story. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I wouldn't quiz you, but like I know, like if I put on Wayne's World, like I don't know if I could remember the scene the scene order.
Yeah.
But like if Wayne's World was on, I could literally like mouth along with every scene of that movie. Oh, but Airplane's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I have watched every episode of The Office probably at least 20 times.
Yes.
And yeah, I know.
Very quotable show.
Very, very quotable show. Yeah. Very quotable show. That was that was just a classic, because the thing that was really funny about it too was that, the Todd Packer character and the Michael Scott character, how those guys were absolutely horrible.
Yes, yeah.
And when I was starting out in the workforce, that's what it was like. That's how people conducted themselves, all the time. So,
yeah, it's like there's more truth to it than I think a lot of people would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I know guys like like Todd that would come in and just be like always at 11, you know, like no filter. But yeah,
absolutely no filter. Yeah.
but yeah, cool. Michael Spedden, thank you so much for being on here. And at some point, I'm working on like an actual live studio space. But I'd love to have you come up and like we'll jam a song together or something.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely.
Put it up on the YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You know where to find me, of course, you know, so absolutely.
Yeah, man, we'll stay in touch. And thanks again for doing this.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate you having me on. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Yeah, man, I'll see you.